speaking of the national, the liberals are flipping out over Ted Cruz and a comment he made yesterday. And I discussed it a little bit in the morning brief. Cruz calls for patrols of Muslim neighborhoods. Ted Cruz yesterday called for a freeze on any new refugees from areas affected by Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, as well as new powers for law enforcement to, quote, patrol Muslim neighborhoods. It's not new powers for law enforcement. I love how Politico spins this. We're going to give new powers to police officers to patrol a neighborhood. What? Cruz said, quote, we need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. Cruz campaign spokeswoman Alice Stewart elaborated, quote, if we want to prevent it from happening here, it's going to require an empowered, visible law enforcement presence that will both identify problem spots and partner with non-radical Americans who want to protect their homes. Local, state, federal law enforcement agencies will all have divisions that target threats like drugs, gangs, human trafficking, and organized crime. Radical Islamic terrorism is a significant and growing threat in this country. But this administration refuses to recognize it because they are afraid of being labeled politically incorrect. The police should have every tool available to follow leads and to take action against those who would do us harm. That comment right there flipped out the media. They couldn't believe it. Ted Cruz, he wants to open up Japanese internment-like camps. What? Heard that on CNN yesterday. I even see some Republicans. Now, granted, these are Republicans out there who never liked Ted Cruz in the first place. And if Donald Trump would have come up with this idea, they would have fawned all over it. If Marco Rubio would have said it, they would have been fine with that. Folks, there's no difference in what Ted Cruz said yesterday about police patrolling Muslim neighborhoods than what police already do now in inner cities. You go to any major city in the United States, you will see more officers patrolling some neighborhoods more than they patrol other neighborhoods. If they believe there's a significant drug potential in one neighborhood, guess what? You're going to see more cops there. If there is a possibility of an increase in crime in one neighborhood, you're going to see more police officers there. That's all Ted Cruz is talking about. He's not saying, hey, you know what? We need to give law enforcement the ability to kick down every single Muslim door and to go in without a warrant and start rounding people up and throwing them in prison. He's not talking about that. All Ted Cruz is talking about is saying, hey, listen, if there's a tip, let's go out there. If we think that there's a neighborhood that might become radicalized like you see in Europe. And here's part of the problem. Outside of Michigan, you don't see a lot of radicalized neighborhoods in this country. In Lubbock, we don't see that. In Europe, in Brussels, there are neighborhoods that are basically looked at as no-go zones. Police officers don't travel there. They have been hands-off areas. You do your thing. Radical Muslim community, we'll do our thing. Just don't bother us. This has been going on for years in Europe. And this is what Ted Cruz is trying to say. We need to prevent this from happening. But instead, the left, they freak out and they start saying, you're promoting Islamophobia. You don't like Muslims. You want to round up Muslims and throw them in internment camps. Give me a break. The terrorist in San Bernardino had neighbors who said they thought something was suspicious, but they didn't want to tell anybody. They didn't want to tell law enforcement. They didn't want to tell anyone because they didn't want to be labeled bigots. Maybe if police would have stepped up patrolling that neighborhood, maybe it would have happened, maybe it wouldn't have happened. I don't know. But folks, police departments around this nation step up patrols in certain neighborhoods all the time. And guess what? Most neighbors are okay with that. Most neighbors, when, they're good, honest people, don't have a problem with that at all. So stop with the faux outrage over Ted Cruz and his patrol comments, okay?